All right, well, thank you all for joining us today. Thank you, Cheryl, and the entire Dell team for inviting me to join you today in Las Vegas. I have to say, my heart always sits with the channel. I went on this journey with Dell all the way back in 2007. And what's been fantastic, and I just want to take a moment for you to give yourselves a hand, that you've gone from pretty much nothing to over 50% of the revenue for the company. So give yourselves a hand. Good on you guys. That is phenomenal. So I'm here to talk about the experience advantage. The conversation is really about trying to help you move out of where you're comfortable. In the beginner's mind, there are many possibilities. In the expert's mind, there are few. Now, what does this mean? For those of you who've been doing this for a really long time, you feel like, I know exactly how to respond to whatever the market throws at us. But I think we could all agree that the last 2 years were filled with something we did not have a roadmap on how to navigate. So we had to have a beginner's mind on how do we engage with customers? How do we keep our salespeople working and adding to the funnel and to the pipeline? How do we keep our marketers able to connect with our customers? How do we keep our ecosystems active? And we might have said, look, face-to-face was always the way we did it, but we had to find a way to create those human connections virtually. Now I'm asking you to rethink what customer experience means to your business. I've been on this journey, on this conversation now for well over 10 years. And I can tell you that this is the first time I've really seen companies embrace customer experience from a competitive position. And now this is why this conversation is much more important. Ultimately, it's because businesses have changed, the act and the art of business has changed, and growth, more specifically consistent and repeatable growth, is getting much harder. Overall, customer expectations are increasing. They are not declining. Overnight, as Cheryl said, we all face this digital virtual reality. But what it also did was it created an opportunity for our employees to work in an environment where their digital experience was different than that of which they had maybe in the four walls of work. And the front line of customer experience was saying, look, what you do is interesting, what you sell is interesting, how you're going to help me fix my problems in the business or support me in my company's growth is interesting, but kind of how you make me feel when we engage, that's really important. 88% of what customers now say they're making decisions on, more so than products and services, is that experience. Now, I'm sitting in a room of product evangelists, right? Software, hardware, services, cloud, security, BI, AI, everything you're working on, that's what gets you excited. But what gets the customers excited is the experience they have with you, your brand, and your people. This imperative has hit a moment of truth. There is no going back. Do I think we're going to go and stay the way we are now in this much more digital environment? I don't. Do I think we're going to go back to the way that it was? I also don't think that's what's going to happen. I think it's going to fall somewhere in between. And having been a former research fellow at Gartner, that is my analyst answer, somewhere in between. It isn't going to stay where it is. In certain situations, you're always going to be digital first. In other situations, you're going to be human first. But the digital imperative forces you to remember, rethink, not with a fixed mindset, but with a growth mindset. Customers will remember the experience they have with you much longer than the price that they paid. And so when a salesperson says to you, oh, we lost that deal because we were priced too high, maybe the experience just wasn't right. So I'm going to give you a few examples. How many of you caught a taxi or an Uber from the airport to the hotel? Okay, keep your hands up for a second. How many of you remember the price you paid? Keep your hand up if you remember the price you paid. All right. How many of you remember if the car was smelly, the driver was too talkative, they were aggressive? Hands go back up. A handful of you remember what you paid, but you remember the experience. The next is, if you went to an amazing restaurant, the food was great, the service was terrible, would you go back? Would you go back? If the food was good, but the service was spectacular, would you go back? You're more likely to do the latter. Even if the food was really good, you'd be like, God, the food was great, but the service was terrible. It took them, 10 minutes to ask if I wanted something to drink. My water was empty, didn't ask me if I wanted another cocktail. Didn't ask, if we wanted dessert or coffee. The food was good, but it was such a long experience. You will remember that much longer than the price that you paid. But who are the keepers of your customer experience promise? Who are the keepers? Who are the ones every single day out there living your brand promise, whatever that might be? What is your brand promise? What is your mission statement? What is your vision? What are your values? Do your people encompass that and show up with it every day and always act as if they are your brand ambassadors? It is your employees. They are the keepers. They are the keepers of your brand. You could say a lot of things on your wall. You can do, kickoffs internally. You can tell everybody what you stand for. But if they don't go out every single day and believe it and live it, your promise of that experience absolutely falls apart. Employees have taken over customers as the #1 priority stakeholder for businesses to ensure long-term success. This is from Edelman's last Trust Barometer. And this is the first time this has ever happened. Customer has always been the #1 stakeholder for the past decade. This time, employees are the #1 stakeholder. They are the ones that are now saying, I want more from where I work. I want to align my values and what I want to get up and do every day with a company that invests in me, that believes in me, that supports in me. And if they don't get that, they've shown pretty clearly over the last 24 months, they will leave. Now, while this employee experience has evolved, we've seen it evolve very different globally. For those of you that are here in from Europe, there's a great article on this slide that Portugal made it a law that bans texting employees after hours. You get a fine if you text your employees after hours. Like forcing you to say, we need more work-life balance. We want to make sure that we have mental health and well-being and all of those things embedded into what we provide for our employees. But it's not just about the personal side of it. We also have to make sure we enable them to be successful in their day-to-day roles. And the fastest way to get customers to love your brand is to get employees to love their job. Period. Full stop. One more time. The fastest way to get your customers to love your brand is to get employees to love their job. With that, I'd love to run a quick video, please.
In the middle of the holiday travel crunch, Toronto ramp agent Jamal Allen noticed something from the tarmac.
Honestly, before pushback, I seen a small child in the window. She was upset, crying.
So Allen, an American Airlines employee, decided to do something about it. Well, passengers erupting in laughter, recording the moment and watching the spectacle.
And I felt like I needed to brighten that child's life, and I just made her smile and stop crying, and the mother was there just applauding me, encouraging me to dance more. So then I continued to dance.
And dance he did, rocking the runway before takeoff.
I danced and I moved around to keep myself warm, and the reason why I wanted to go above and beyond was just to make the passengers happy.
Allen hopes to be a pilot one day, but before he earns his wings, he's fine showing off his moves and lifting people's spirits along the way.
It was a really big impact of me, a great way to end off 2018.
All right, so who wants that guy working for you? I'm coming to your data center. Probably not, but you get the idea. The point is that the employee's going the extra mile. The employee's saying, oh, I saw somebody, they weren't happy sitting in the plane, it was a little kid, like, what can I do? What can I do to represent the brand? Now, he didn't get in trouble for it, he got celebrated for it. That's where you have to create this sort of psychological safety that if employees go the extra mile for your customers, that they don't somehow then get punished for it. Of course, if it's something they shouldn't be doing, and all of the caveats to that statement. But employees aren't always happy, and it's absolutely impacting customer experience and growth. Now, I'll give you just a quick little story. So, as Cheryl mentioned, I wrote a book called Growth IQ. There were 10 paths to growth. I missed employee completely. Didn't even mention it. It's a total miss. 6.5 years later, leaving Gartner, now I'm at Salesforce. I spend a lot of time on culture and working with executives around how do we empower and uplift the capabilities of the talent, especially during this time. And so I said, you know what? I've got to go out and figure out what is the connection between this employee experience, commitment, satisfaction, and the customer experience. And what are the levers between the two that we can get better at pulling so that we ensure that both become more in balance? So we went out and did research. First, we did it in the US. The findings were so good that we went and did it on a global basis. This is a global snapshot. What I want to highlight for you in your left side is ranked by employees, the top challenges for growth for employees. Number one, employees leaving too often and can't keep top talent. So they feel like they're just getting the groove of their team, they're understanding how everybody works, and then that person's gone or that manager's gone. The next is outdated technology, which I'm going to guess this room can fix. Just an idea. The PC is not dead. It's a joke Cheryl and I have that many, many, many moons ago, I worked at a company called Gateway. I ran a division of Gateway, and I remember when the notebook came out, oh, that's going to get rid of the desktop. Then the tablet came out, it's going to get rid of the desktop and the notebook. And then the smartphone came out, it's going to get rid of all of them. How many only carry one device today? Nobody. So we've all sort of expanded. But if you look at what the executives say, number 6 is outdated technology. They have no idea what the employees are having to deal with every single day. What they think is happening is it's growth and development for employees. Like, we're not investing in them. That is true. But the fact that this disconnect, I'm just picking on technology, and I'm not really doing it because I'm here at Dell World. I'm doing it because it is hugely impactful. Because if you're just not able to do your job, you're more likely to say, why am I here? I'm working way too hard to do what should be very simple. So we then said, let's figure out what's happening. The average enterprise has 900 apps, and only 29% of them are integrated. Once again, I think this room can help out. That means I need to serve a customer. I have to go to 5 places to get it done. Do I have a single source of truth? Do I know where I can find the customer information? Do I have to pass them to someone else? Am I not aware of a campaign that happened? Is customer service not enabled and have access to the same information? This integration problem is real, and as we go more and more hybrid, it's going to get worse unless you can help your customer base really understand the power of that integration. Because ultimately, poor employee experience leads to poor CX. I placed an order on your website and it still hasn't shipped. It could be a problem with the web team. This is a customer service agent, or our technical team, or our fulfillment team, or our inventory team, or our payment team. But I can't access the system, so there's no way to tell. Aren't you all part of the same team? No. I'm only in charge of excellent customer service. It's funny, not funny, right? If you've called a call center in the last, I don't know, month, it's shocking. Everybody has longer than usual hold times. Do you think they all got together and said, we're all going to just collectively have longer than usual hold times? And then you get on the phone and you're just like, oh my God, please, somebody help me. And that employee has 900 systems, 29% of them are integrated. I don't have the capability to deliver the kinds of services that we need. Your employees want the same level of capability they have at home, especially now with this work from home environment, that they have at work. Right? Doing something at work is often more painful than doing the same thing at home. Like, I want to order paper, I want to have it delivered to my home office. I can order a box of paper, have it delivered to my home office. If I'm going to expense it and it's over $50, I need to get 3 approvals. I need to do it through this particular vendor. I can't do it on my phone. I have to do it via, whatever it might be. And you're like, my goodness, it's so much easier to I'll just buy my own box of paper. Why am I wasting this much time? So we have to make sure that we ensure the seamless tech story, because 52% of C-suite believe that they're giving the right technology and it's working effectively, which 52% believing it's good tells you that 48% don't believe it's good. Only 32% of employees believe that the technology their company provides is working effectively. Only 32%. And only 20% of customer-facing employees agree. Do you know the answer for your own employees? If you track Net Promoter Score for your brand, do you track ENPS for your employees? Are they happy with what you're delivering them? One of the biggest things in the channel I've seen over the 25 years I've been in and around it is you guys are fantastic technologists externally. You don't always make the same investments internally on what your own people need to be successful. So this was the landing of this experience equation. And what we found was brands that put employee experience as a top priority saw 1.3x growth in their client satisfaction KPIs. Like, going back to that cartoon, if your employees are happy, the satisfaction KPIs go up from a client perspective. If you have CX as a top priority, 1.4x growth in employee satisfaction, right? There is a virtuous circle of, if your customers are happy, your employees are happy. If your employees are happy, your customers are happier. There is truth to that. Should be no surprise. But when you do both really, really well, you get 1.8x. So if you do one well, CX, you get a lift. If you do one well, EX, you get a lift. Both good. If you do both at the same time, you get 1.8x. So for a $1 billion brand, it's a $40 million impact. Now, I realize there's not a lot of $1 billion brands in here, but what is that from a growth rate perspective for you on 1.8x? There is revenue to be had that you're leaving on the table if you're not paying attention. Now, even though I just said employee experience is the new #1 stakeholder, it has huge impact in CX. 9 in 10 C-suite members say all employees are encouraged to focus on the customer above all else. So if you say you have a strong employee experience culture, yet you then on the other side say, but it's always about the customer, you're kind of at conflict. They don't know which direction to go in. You have to have the seamless connection between those efforts. In understanding holistically this 360 view between employee experience investments, customer experience investments, and how do you make both productive, engaged, and committed to your brand as an employee and to your brand as a customer. So what do you need to do? Here are the 5 steps we sort of mapped out. Aligning the organization, define it. What is CX, good CX? What is good EX? What does it look like? Understand, what do your employees need? What do your customers need? What are you focused on? Actually do an inventory of your own technology. How many apps? What do they have to use in order to engage with customers? Is there integration points? Is there opportunity? Are we collaborating? Do our metrics align to make sure that everyone is going in the same direction? We're not over-investing in C and under-investing in E. It may not be balanced, but think of it like a balloon. Right? You might squeeze on the balloon and one side gets a little bit bigger at a point in time because you need it to be, and then you might squeeze it again and you focus on the other side. But using this lens of making sure that both have the same level of effort. And the next is action on feedback. I was having a conversation, he is not in the room because he's an end user customer, not a partner, last night at the bar. And we were having this very conversation. He's like, my employer, my HR department has asked me to go out and survey my employees. And I go, what are you doing with that information? He's like, nothing. They haven't asked me for the information. After I've now surveyed all my employees, I look like the jerk. So if you're going to ask, you better be willing to take the feedback and potentially action it differently. And this is really because the lines are blurring between B2B and B2C. I don't like that definition any longer. I've really moved to business to everything, everyone, and every experience. It takes out of the conversation this differentiation between what a customer and a business, a consumer and a business may want. So, the final thought. What will you do differently? What will you do differently because of what you heard here today in my session, what Cheryl said, what Michael said, and this entire week? Remember, a beginner's mind. Be open to the possibility. Whatever you do, be bold. I always say, unless it's illegal or it's going to kill somebody, go for it. The worst thing that can happen is it just doesn't work and you learn from it. So if you'd like to learn more about the research, you're actually going to get a QR code that will give you access to being able to download it. You can subscribe to my podcast, What's Next with Tiffany Bova, and then obviously we've got the books.